the mushrooms told me, this voice just 2 hours in, I was like, man, is this going to stop? And it said, hey, we can get you better, but you need to stop looking at everything that had happened and that was wrong, and you need to let that go. We can give you your brain back, and then you need to go create programming for other people, and you need to use your platform for good. And then I said, yes. How this medicine helps you become the observer of what's going on. Like, it almost gives me more time. Like, it awards me more time between the thought, the emotion, and then what I actually do. Everyone wants to live forever now, right? It's like, the way I think you get more time while you're alive is by doing this type of medicine, slowing things down, and then the more you're in the moment, which the present moment is the only moment we have, I think the more time you have. And this medicine helps me stay more present. The most important part is respecting it, and then creating your own relationship with the medicine is really important. And if you do those things, I don't think you should feel guilty about taking it. I think we should all have access to it. If the earth is providing this, then why shouldn't we all have access to it? I wrote something where I say, like, the title of it was like, if I use mushrooms and mushrooms use me.
Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness. All right, today on Men Talking Mindfulness, we are joined by Daniel Carcillo, a two-time Stanley Cup champion whose NHL career was cut short by traumatic brain injury. After being forced to retire at age 30, Dan faced some of the toughest battles off the ice, struggling with depression and post-concussive symptoms. Instead of backing down, Dan found hope and healing in the world of psilocybin, magic mushrooms, and now he's on a mission to help others do the same. Get ready for an honest and inspiring conversation about second chances, mental health, and the surprising power of magic mushrooms. Welcome, gentlemen. Jon, great to see you. Dan, such a pleasure to have you today. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, boys.
Yeah, excited to get in this conversation. It's definitely something that Will and I are both passionate about, both have experienced in our own ways. Definitely looking forward to having this conversation. But before we get into that conversation, just a couple of announcements. Talking about mental clarity, and one of the things that has helped us, myself and Will, is we've started using a daily supplement called Nourish, and that's spelled Neurish. So that's Neurish. It's a once daily powder supplement that can upgrade your health from the inside out. So head to mentalkingmindfulness.com to find out more, and you can get a discount there by using our code. And also, hey, in October, we've got a Spartan race coming up down in Texas. And if you'd like to join the team, we'd love to see you as part of it. And we are also putting that information out on mentalkingmindfulness.com. So basically what I'm saying, if you want to find out about what we're up to, check out mentalkingmindfulness.com. Easy enough.
Get your ass to mentalkingmindfulness.com.
That's right.
And it's in the show notes too. So
it'll be in the show notes, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, and Dan, I don't know if you've ever tuned into the show, but we also like to kick off the show. The show is called Men Talking Mindfulness. So we actually like to kick off the show with a very simple one breath grounding practice to get us settled, and then for our audience as well. So that said, if you feel comfortable joining us, Dan, we'd love it. And then for our audience, let's go ahead and get centered, get our feet on the ground. And if it's available to you, close your eyes and let's just focus on our breath and exhale, letting it all go, holding empty at the bottom, and then a nice long, slow, deep breath in, holding full at the top, and letting that go. Letting that go, and then bring some movement back into the body, wiggling the fingers, wiggling the toes. And let's get into this, boys. Let's do it.
All right, Dan, how did you get the nickname, the Car Bomb, in the NHL? It's like
jumping right in.
That's the please. What a great name, by the way.
Yeah,
I used to drink Car Bomb. Remember the Car Bomb drink? They used
Oh
to
yeah,
back
the Jägermeister.
Jägermeister.
Jägermeister dropped into Guinness.
Yeah, exactly.
The Irish Car Bomb.
Oh yeah, there's so many people in Philly that would try to get me that drink. But it was a summer. It was right after the first year with the Flyers. We were in London, Ontario. We had Barney's outside at a bar, and then one of the guys just, he's like, "We need a nickname for you," and they said "Car Bomb," and it stuck ever since. And it's because of the way I played. Basically my attitude on the ice was, if the team needed a momentum shift or anybody messed around with any of my teammates that didn't fight, or, that there just needed to be something that needed to be taken care of, because of someone's actions, then I would go out there and take care of business.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah. Back when I learned the game, it was very much to try to take that will of your opponent away. And you did that through a number of different various tools. And one of them was obviously physical contact.
Yeah, man.
Well, you're known for your aggressive style of play. And I think, what year did you lead the league in penalties? Was it like 2013 or something like that? Which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think it was my first full year. I led the league in penalty minutes. I was trying to get Schultz's record, but I think I missed 21 games, and still led the league. So back then they counted tens. So, it'd be like at the end of a game and I'd just go tell the ref to fuck off or something like that and just pad the stats. Just for no reason.
Yeah. Right.
Now, Dan, where'd you grow up?
King City, Ontario. So
okay.
Probably a town of like 6,000 people. It's grown now to about 30,000, but it's like 60 minutes north of the city of Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Did you grow up fighting? I mean, off the ice, did you grow up fighting, getting in trouble in school and stuff? Were you an aggressive guy?
Not really. No. I'm kind of the opposite of that.
That's what you come across as right now. You seem pretty chill. Now,
Super
it may have a lot to do with what we're going to be talking about later.
Yeah. I mean, no, I've always been like that. I've always kind of been reserved, and I don't say too much unless I'm in like a setting where I'm comfortable and around people that I'm comfortable, like I can match energy. But I've always been kind of calm. Now, there are things that I take on, and then I do have a bit of a temper, or I did as a kid. Yeah. But we would go to like, rival schools and in high school and fight them, and there'd be fights on the playground and stuff. And we were pretty rough kids, especially compared to what I see, in this neighborhood in Florida with my kids. It's wild how it kind of changes, but everybody knew each other's name. All the parents knew each other. We never locked our doors to the cars, to the house. Like it was that type of neighborhood.
Yeah, man. I feel you. I grew up in Louisiana, and, for the most part, I like to consider that I was pretty chill, but if somebody, hurt a friend of mine, hurt my brother, whatever the case, maybe even just threatened, then I needed to step in. So I definitely understand how having to ramp up is part of your personality, or can be. So then on the ice, man, you carry that forward on the ice, but then you're forced to retire at 30, and that was because of TBI. And so how many TBIs, concussions did you have playing on the ice?
So 7 diagnosed in the NHL. And concussions are important. That can lead to, neurodegenerative disease. And I had a early onset dementia diagnosis, but really it's a lot of the repetitive head trauma too, right? Some people present themselves having this CTE, this neurodegenerative disease that shows up in athletes with a history of this, repetitive concussive events. And yeah, I just had a lot of like big issues start happening after the 7th diagnosed, balance issues and light sensitivity and things that aren't conducive for an athlete, to continue on. And unfortunately back then, and I say back then in 2015, almost 10 years ago, I'm getting old. We didn't have like I wish I had access to knew about like PubMed papers and knew about, because this is right around the time that Johns Hopkins was starting to, pick up research into these medicines that are found in nature that can actually reverse the signs of brain damage. And so if I had them, maybe I could have played longer, but it's just the arc of my life, getting out of the league, getting into the medical system. I had all the means in the world, and they couldn't do much for me, which is a scary proposition for really anyone that's looking for answers for concussion. So, but I'm just blessed that, my journey's my journey, and mushrooms ended up finding me, and then just trying to carry that message now to other people that don't have much hope.
Yeah. How did you and the mushrooms find one another? Like,
Yeah. So the
that
first,
smile has a lot behind it.
Yeah.
well,
Anyway.
well, they can hear you. You know, they're in my. You know, they're coursing through me all the time. So I first got like prescribed pharmaceuticals for the first 2 years. That exacerbated a lot of other symptoms, made things worse. I got really angry because it was just this constant fluctuation of cocktails and stuff. And so I just went cold turkey off of that. Probably shouldn't have done it. Had a couple seizures.
Ooh,
Jeez.
Yeah. And then started to go to like stroke rehabilitation concussion centers where, again, these are like, man, you're paying like $1,500 cash. You feel great when you're there a day, but like, and then when you get home, you know, you try to do the exercises and stuff, but it's just not the same as, and it's not conducive to living a life with 3 kids, and nobody can go to a clinic and spend that type of money for the rest of their life. So I got to a point where neurologists like just threw their arms up, you know, couldn't really do much more for me. Started to do float tanks, hyperbaric chamber, mox acupuncture, craniosacral, you know, stem cells, hormone replacement therapy, like all of the things available. And I was starting to manage things, you know, with these like more holistic tools, but it was a study that I saw with a placebo brain and a brain on mushrooms that convinced me that, wow, this, you know, if that's happening while you're on mushrooms, that's what these doctors at these stroke rehabilitation centers said that they could do for me. They could identify the area of my brain shut down due to trauma and then wake it back up by doing these exercises. That all sounded great, but it never really happened. So, but before I left, I learned so much about the brain and diagnostics and like how things were operating and just being in my body for, you know, being a professional athlete. I took diagnostics before I left, blood work, and then, partook in one of these ceremonies in the summer of July in 2019. It was right when they decriminalized it in Denver. So I was like, all right, you know, still stigma there, but I can't get arrested for it. And so I partook in 5.6 grams, and I
whoa,
I approached
that's a
it
lot.
like very naive. Like I had
Yeah, you went
no
off the
idea
deep end right away.
right away. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was suicidal at that point. Right. And so
Man.
like mushrooms exasperate what's at the forefront of your mind. And, you know,
Oof.
people listening to this, I don't shy away. Like we have a center in Portland. We're going to open up another in Colorado. But
Yeah.
if you're dealing with anxiety or depression, you're going to meet the anxiety or depression in the ceremony.
Right.
Right. And so like we prepare, and what you guys just did at the beginning of this podcast, like the way you get through it is by knowing that the facilitator in the room, you've prepared them with what could come up, and then you tether to your breath, and you
Right.
really be curious about why it's there, and you learn from it as opposed to running away from it, you know,
Right.
because it'll just continue to chase you. Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it really smacked me and showed me that I was in this kind of loop. But it, like in most ceremonies, it was amazing because what happened after 2 hours of just like being stuck in this loop, that I realized in the ceremony, I was creating my own hell, right? I was stuck in this victimhood mindset. Yes, of course I had symptoms, but I was attacking the NHL for what had happened. And I wasn't really taking ownership. Like if you think of it objectively,
Right.
and there's lawsuits and stuff going on, and I probably shouldn't say this, but like, man, getting hit in the head isn't a good thing, you know? And so the mushrooms told me, this voice just, you know, 2 hours in, I was like, man, is this going to stop? And it said, hey, we can get you better, but you need to stop looking at everything that had happened and that was wrong, and you need to let that go. And then we can give you your brain back. And then you need to go create programming for other people, and you need to use your platform for good. And then I said yes. And as soon as I said yes, and I meant it, everything lifted. Like I shot up to somewhere before the clouds, still kind of in my body, but you know, and then I felt unconditionally loved for the first time. Like it felt like when I grabbed my kids and you hug them. So, and then I've never looked back, man. Like that was almost 6 years ago. And I've never had a symptom since. It took about 6 months for everything to fall away. I did 2 high doses, followed by a specific washout period of 4 weeks, and then 5 days on, 2 days off of a microdose protocol. Focus on my diet, sleep, mindfulness practices, the way I saw the world. And yeah, man, I've never been happier, you know. And if I can have this, I know in my heart other people can have it too if they want it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. You know
Beautiful,
what?
man.
Let me just say, John. Like one thing that we don't even have in the notes here, but you brought up what you're saying is this inherent wisdom that's in the the mushroom itself. You just like because I've had that same experience. Al John and I actually met first time in person. We did a psilocybin ceremony in Costa Rica with the Beckley retreaters. We actually did the the Beckley group,
Yeah, I know Beckley.
um,
Neil's
and
awesome.
rest in
Yeah.
peace, Amanda Fielding. She just passed away. Who was one
Hmm.
of the leaders of
Oh,
that.
really?
Yeah, yeah, she just passed away like last week. Yeah,
Wow.
And it
God bless her.
seems like
Hmm.
SciTech, and I think that's Amanda's company, and Atai might be joining forces. So there's a
Yeah,
lot of
it's a
stuff
lot.
going on.
I mean, but
Hmm.
one thing
Wow.
like I've tapped into that wisdom that's in these plant medicines, including psilocybin, and I'm just wondering like what can you talk a little bit more about that wisdom? You kind of alluded to it a little bit. Maybe just take a little bit deeper dive would be great.
Yes. So I typically stay away from talking about this type of stuff
Oh,
because, but,
perfect.
but, but like, man, you wouldn't believe, I don't want to confuse people, right? Like, I feel like my following, I have 4 kids, athletes, executive veterans, they're not too interested in the Malabeads and the shawls and the spirituality type of talk. They're a little bit more interested in like, okay, well, if I have self-doubt and then I come into this, how am I going to be? I'm like, well, you're going to be more confident. But when you do this medicine, like this is my belief, and we can, I believe that you're eating nature, which you're eating God, you know, and or like a godlike substance, right? Like because typically when people come and present themselves to me like I was, they're stuck in the logical brain. They're stuck up here ruminating in thought. Um and what this medicine does is because it attaches to the receptors in your belly and it makes you more instinctive. So it allows you to get out of your head and more into like your intuition, into this feeling that I believe is connected to this unseen force, energy, frequency, whatever you want to call it, source. People say divine, God. I don't know. You can call it whatever you want. But the reason I continue to use this medicine is because when I get stressed and fearful and anxious and all of the things that a parent of 4 and an entrepreneur has to deal with in life, I know I'm getting away and I'm getting too stuck in this logical brain, which is continuing to scan for all the things wrong that could kill us. That's how we evolved. Then when I eat this medicine and it helps me solve a problem or just simply to get more into this connection with nature, which I believe we're born out of the world. I don't believe we're born in. Um, and that's an Alan Watts thought, and it
Got
just
it.
really resonates with me. You know, that's what I tell a lot of people, right? And again, I don't talk about this much because it scares people. I think you meet God in the ceremony. Like God is inside of these mushrooms. Like so when you get to peek behind the veil and you feel it, you know, and that I think is the mystical experience that Roland Griffiths and these that's the thing that I think is will be missing when these pharmaceutical companies try to take the trip out. You know, why does this work, right? I think you just have some realization that the way that you were thinking about your depression or anxiety and living your life was just so stupid. And just like it just doesn't, you're almost dumbfounded by the way that once you have these type of feelings and realizations, like you can't go back, you know? So anyway, I hope that makes sense.
No,
I
it
mean,
makes
I
a
could
hell of a
talk
lot of
about it.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and thank you for clearing that up. And it's like I've had that in mushroom ceremonies. I've done ayahuasca like over 6 times. So, and I've like all of a sudden this voice comes in. You're like, where is that coming from? You know, and it's almost like you talked about like this feeling this incredible for the first time in your life, this incredible loving experience, like almost being hugged by by Mother Nature, if you will, and really being taken care of. I really felt like I was being guided and kind of shown what and like really it's almost like you really presented the truth of your nature And then it's like, and then using the plant medicine, having a guide with you to help you move you through that experience, right? And release from the resistance that like, oh, I should be doing this. This life is this, instead of fall in to life, and with that big hug that kind of comes from a high dose like this,
Yeah.
and realizing like everything's going to be okay. I
Yeah.
just need to relax and stop pushing.
Yeah. And like what you're talking about is, I think in order to live fully, right, we have to die a little bit. And so like what we're talking about here is like, okay, I'm going to go into this experience. I know I'm somebody different than the person that you see. There's this physical body that everyone identifies me with. And then there's the person that I think I am behind my eyes. And that's different for Will and Jon. And we each have that own view. And those are two different things to me. In some of these ceremonies, and what we ask people when we prepare them is like, okay, are you comfortable leaving your body behind, or are you not? Do you want to stay? Do you want to put a foot on the ground, right? If you can. And so that helps us with dosage, with understanding where these people are. And what you typically see is when people are really, really suffering from like complex PTSD and they've just had the shit kicked out of them and they're just so ready and tired and they need the reset. Those people typically pick, I need to kill this view of myself off. And then they always come back with these kind of realizations that you're talking about, right, Will, which is like, there's definitely like, if everything's energy and then I have this consciousness, I'm using this body, it makes you realize that everything really is like interconnected and you may live forever, because even when you leave your body, you still know, like when I did my ayahuasca ceremony and I saw my grandparents and we had the discussion, like they were there, like their consciousness was there. I could identify, even though they didn't have their bodies, so like that was just a really cool feeling and confirmation, because I've always had this myopic, like very strange view of death. And so that's what I took into it, right? The ayahuasca ceremony where I was like, all right, show me where I go, so that I can not be so overbearing with my kids and I can just let go, and walk around with a little bit of more confidence, a little bit more knowledge, so yeah, I mean, I could, like I said, you could talk about it for hours. Like it's remarkable.
Well, I love that piece that you just said there. I mean, I loved it all, but that piece there at the end, letting go. I think that's one thing that so many of us struggle with in this world. I mean, heck, your TBIs led to your being retired early. I went to this course. Veterans struggle with leaving the military. A lot of us do, because we've had one singular mission for 4 years or 40 years. Regardless, we've had one singular mission, and that's to basically fight for this country. When you really boil it down, athletes are the same way, right? You've had one mission. You can play hockey, you're going to be a swimmer, you're going to be a baseball player, play football, whatever the case may be. That's your mission. And you kind of become defined by that. And I went through this course at Dartmouth, the business school, at their business school called Tuck. The program is called Tuck Next Step. I don't know if you're familiar with it at all, Dan, but
familiar with Dartmouth. Went to a school visit. Yeah, they used to.
Oh yeah, it's awesome, man.
Really good hockey team.
So this course, it's 10-day long crash course on business, and believe me, I'm going somewhere here with this. Just bear with me.
No, I want to make sure. I wanted to make a note. I want to make a note on.
Yeah. Dude. Yeah, we can check into that later, man. But this course is called Next Step, and half of the cohort are either retired or soon to be retired military service members, or getting out. They don't necessarily have to retire. And the other half of the cohort is transitioning professional athletes. So you're in there with NBA players, you're in there with gold medalists, you're in there with hockey players. And when we first get together, there's this kind of mutual respect. Like we stand in one room, there's athletes on one side, veterans on the other, and we look across the room and like, damn, look at those superhero athletes. And they're like, damn, look at those superhero veterans. And then the next day we're sitting in a class and we're next to one another and we start talking and we're like, oh, wow, there's actually a lot more in common with these guys than we realized. They're suffering kind of a loss of identity as they're going through this. we're feeling a loss of identity as we're going through this, and we start to bond. And now some of my best friends are still like ex-professional athletes, and that's where the letting go. I'm coming back to the letting go piece, letting go of how you've defined yourself, letting go of your ego, letting go of holding on so tight to one thing or another. That piece is so huge. How much of the anxiety and or the depression that you were feeling do you feel was from the physical side, from the TBIs? And then how much of it was from essentially losing your identity early? And then how do you feel those were addressed in these ceremonies?
Yeah. So I feel like I was lucky because I didn't grow up like ever thinking that I would play in the NHL. I was really drawn to the game because it was like an emotional release. I was a very confused. I was calm, but I was a little angry inside, like frustrated. I grew up in a house and I'm an empath where I think, our parents, back in the day hit us, right? And it just really made me upset, and so then I took it out on a sport where I can, legally pound somebody if they're touching a puck.
Right.
So I wasn't like this Toronto kid that was like, all right, so really when I left, what happened to me was, I really missed the room. Like I missed the community. It wasn't necessarily that I wasn't a hockey player, because I was always a little embarrassed and shy. Like I usually typically don't tell people what I did. They find out and like, why didn't you tell me? I'm like, well, I don't know. That doesn't, it was something I did. I'm proud of it. I'm really proud of it, because those are the skills that have helped me, number one, like recover from the TBIs, and number two, put those, skills into building what we're building now. But it was really community. What I found was when I got into the real world, and this might sound really bad, but it's the truth. When I got around civilians, I was like, I am so different from these people.
I feel you, man. I feel you.
And it's not that I'm better. I'm just different. I'm like,
Man.
my brain, I don't want to talk to Rick about the weather. I just don't want to fill the time.
Yeah.
I don't, I want to have these types of conversations.
Word.
I want to have the types of conversations that I had on Sunday night with like Wade and Jamie about what this all means, about like what we're doing with our life, like these deeper, these like meaningful things, right? Not just filling the air, because you can't just stand there quietly, and so that was a really big thing for me, was like community is gone, and now I need to find other people, because I work off of energy, and if I tend to isolate when I get depressed or anxious or like fearful, or, I'll just kind of cut myself off. So, building a community was really important. And just, it was, just difficult to find. But to your point, the veterans and the athletes, we are so alike. I always say like different arenas, same traumas, similar traumas. And people say, well, you didn't risk your life. And it's not, I don't think it comes down to that. I think it's always this kind of like fight mode. You're always very hyper aware, which also I think makes us good, business people, right? Like these skill sets of attention to detail and operations, and like things need to be the way that they need to be in order for us to succeed. And then I think the other thing is accountability. Like when you build something with an athlete or a veteran, and you mess it up, it's like you could come and tell me and I will fix it immediately. There's no grudge that I'm going to hold against you. It's just thank you, because you're trying to make me better. There's no drama, so I think finding your tribe is really important. And it's something we're focusing on right now at the center. It's like, okay, like how do we, because the other thing I heard you say, Jon, is like, well, how do I live? Like, like, okay, you've just highlighted, or this medicine or this program that I just went through highlighted pretty much everything that's wrong, right? So now how do I live? How do I live a fruitful life? And can you show me? And then not only can you show me, I'll do something for a week. How do I do it for like 30 days? And then when I slip, who's going to be there to pick me up? So like that's a big part of the program, of it's like, hey man, this is what you should eat. This is how maybe you should think about, what you're doing, and do hard things. And then on the other side, there's usually a paradise.
Yeah, I mean, access your humanity and all those things you talked about. One thing we see often from the men we work with is that loss of purpose, and that can lead to all sorts of depression, anger, frustration, all sorts of thoughts that don't align with who you want to be. So I'm glad you're actually including that in the program as well, because like, you have these, you can have these massive experiences from doing working with this wonderful medicine, but then it's like, what do you do with it? And if you don't have that, now that you've been released, and kind of free from, or kind of go above like that thinking that's been trapping you in the same space. And it's like, okay, what, now you mentioned earlier, it's like, what is the next best step for me? And when you really begin to find that path, the life really starts to make a hell of a lot more sense. And you're really connecting with the divine intelligence, of your life, and being with source, living source, instead of just accessing source through the medicine, which is wonderful. Yeah.
And what you're talking about, Will, is like, I think is really important. I find that there's this gap between like, okay, you've had this medicine, right? You feel maybe godlike or divine, or it's like,
Yeah.
okay, motherfucker. Well, what are you going to do with your life? Like,
Exactly.
it's like, dude, nobody in this industry is talking about how hard it is to change your life. Like
Yeah.
the grit, the determination,
Yeah.
like the discipline it takes to like see it through. Yes, have the realizations for sure.
Right.
And it's like, do you, and language matters, right? So like in my mind, I'm still trying to work this thing out. It's like, all right, is tough love still love? And how tough can I be on myself? And like the reason I'm working this out, Will, is because like I was so far on the other spectrum where like I was so negative towards myself that would motivate me, this fear of not being good enough. Like that's what motivated my whole life. I don't do that now, but some days I do that. And I'm kind of caught in between. I'm like, is that bad for me to do that? Because I respond really well to that. Can you do that forever? I don't think so. I think it needs to be, and then you just find like what works for you, what works for for Will. That narrative might not work for me, might not work for other people, right? So like it's a really interesting thing of like, okay, like how do we talk to ourselves? Because one thing that did happen, a big shift, was that negative voice turned really positive. But I find it was amazing, but then I find myself, I'm like, if I'm too positive all the time, I don't know, a big piece of me worries that then I'll lose the work ethic, or I'll lose the drive, or I'll lose the dog, or but I will say, like, being in that, I call it like the gratitude mindset. I'd much rather be like, hey man, my life's pretty amazing. Like, and I got so lucky. I'm so lucky that all my kids are healthy, and I'd rather be there than be like, okay, well, what's wrong with the business today? Or what do we have to, I got to get on this call with this person, or, I got to go to Poland. And I'm like, man, 9 hours
God
with
forbid.
4 kids. Like, yeah, it's like, but my mind's like, oh my God, 9 hours, 4 kids. Like, this is going to be fucking awful. And then there's parts of it that probably will, but like, and been there before, and I don't like the food, but my mind will just recite all this stuff. But I have what's cool is like with this medicine, I get to observe it. That's just the way my mind is, just because of like, dude, I've lived in that for like decades, way longer than 6 years of being in this new kind of. So I'll watch it, and then I'm like, like, let me play it through. This is how it's going to go. Wife's going to be pissed. Kids are probably not going to have a good, like, and I'm like, no, like, let's do it a little bit differently. because I went to Poland 5 days after I won the Stanley Cup, and I was rattled. I was like, dude, I don't want to be here. Like, and so this time's going to be a little bit different, even though there's a big part of me that is like, dude, your butt should be in the chair. You got these new businesses.
Right.
So I'll have this discussion with myself, and then I always come out, especially if I'm close to the mushrooms, like I microdosed today, and the mushrooms just help you, like, dude, like, stay in the present moment.
Chill the fuck out.
Chill out. Everything's gonna be great. Yeah, you're gonna be on a time change, but just figure it out. Do your calls here. You'll find a gym. There's a healthy McDonald's right down the road. That's your
I guess the European McDonald's is better.
Dude, yeah. So I think that's the other thing that I would like to touch on is like how this medicine helps you become the observer of what's going on. Like, it almost gives you a second, or like, it gives me more time. Like, it awards me more time between the thought, the emotion, and then what I actually do, which is really cool. Like, people are constantly asking me, because we take genetic tests and blood tests and stuff at the center to prove that this is reversing the age of the brain and all this stuff. But it's like, everyone wants to live forever now, right? It's like the new thing. Or
Brian Johnson, the do not die guy.
Yeah.
But the way I think you get more time while you're alive is by like doing this type of medicine, slowing things down. And then the more you're in the moment, which is present moment is the only moment we have, I think the more time you have, and this medicine helps me stay more present. So it's cool.
Yeah, man. I was having a conversation with my daughter not too long ago, and she was like, when do I get to drive? She's 8. She's like, when will I get my driver's license? I was like, oh, well, when you're 16. And she's like, that's twice my life. I've lived 8 years. That's 8 more years. And I was like, baby, that's going to go really quick. As you get older, that time goes by faster. And I've always thought that it was because, 8 years relative to an 8-year-old, that's 100% of their life. 8 years relative to an 80-year-old, that's just a little blink of an eye. But I also think it has to do with how much time as an adult we're living in the future or living in the past, and not taking that present moment, taking advantage of that present moment, appreciating and showing gratitude for that present moment. And because of that, it goes so much faster. But the times that I'm actually present in the moment, like I went with my same daughter to Australia a few weeks ago, and Dan, I had the same concerns. I was like, oh my gosh, 17 hours on a plane with an 8-year-old. This is going to be hell on wheels. She was an angel. She didn't get up the entire time, like not even go to use the bathroom. I was like, what in the, like, anyhow.
I was going to say, my only concern is the 2-year-old. The other ones are like, they'll be all right.
Yeah, man. But I had those same concerns. And when I was in Australia, we were there for 12 days. It went really slow because I was very present, because I wasn't working. I wasn't thinking about, I love you, Will, but I wasn't thinking about you too much. I wasn't thinking about the show too much.
I got to think about that later. Thanks, man.
Will's not sleeping tonight.
But yeah, man, the present moment, it slows things down. And I think, like you said, even without living any longer as far as number of years, we live a longer life because we're here, we're present, right? People have absenteeism. Yeah, sure, they have physical absenteeism, but they've also got mental absenteeism when they are not in the moment. They are somewhere else, some other time, some other place. And man, they are wasting so much of this present moment.
Yeah.
So
maybe we take some time to talk about what keeps me present. So because this is just one tool. So working out really helps me.
Sure.
And obviously getting the right sleep.
Correct.
Mushrooms help me, and then breath work really helps me. So
same.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If you guys
eating
have any
well.
others.
Eating well,
we
man.
talk about that quite a bit on the show, but those, you have to. I literally 2-3 hours ago, I just led a workshop here in Colorado, in Durango, with a bunch of doctors and executives and CEOs of this hospital, the surgical hospital. And that's like, I talk about the experience of, you are a triangle, and you're in the middle of this triangle of mind, body, and breath. And it's like, what do you need to do to honor your body? Feed it, hydrate it, sleep well. What do you need to do to honor your mind? Like maybe let go of social media, or like kind of let go of things that cause stress. And what is like the greatest equalizer of all those things is your breathing. Get to know your breath, create a relationship to your breathing so you can get present, so you can really activate your body from the inside out, have your brain working for you instead of against you, have your body like really fresh and ready to go and take on whatever's coming at you through that day. And it's so incredibly important. And that's one thing we always talk about on the show. It's like, you need to honor your body. It needs a certain amount of exercise every day. Talk about sleep, hydration, healthy food is very good. What are you putting into your mind, and how are you continually finding a relationship to your breath? And maybe like you're saying, like, taking some time and going to like a breath class, and really getting in touch with that and really feel, the power of your breathing. And then, on your own, creating your own little practice where, just taking even just 5 minutes or go into a longer breath session and just begin to feel what it's like for the breath to activate you from the inside out, and then having this tremendous amount of clarity. And you can, again, you're kind of, like you said earlier, like really objectifying the experience instead of being so attached to the way you want things to be. Instead, you're just like step away. And you're always like, if you're only looking in one direction, like that's the solution. Oh my God, I got to go over there. What is if you're so connected to just your ego, and your mind is just so connected to there's only one way that this can be answered or something like that. What are the other 10,000 opportunities that you're missing that is already in the field if you just step back and detach a little bit, stay calm, stay connected? And just another thing, coming back to almost, the divine thing, is just trust that things will arrive on time, and it might not be now, but just live the question itself, like locked rooms or like books that are written in a very foreign tongue, says Rilke. Just trust and just keep going and keep honoring your body and your mind, and just keep taking that next step. And like, and connect as well, connect to other human beings, which can help you forward onto that path.
Yeah.
So
I call those, like being present enough to see like the God winks, like John, as soon as you came on, like even just Colorado Springs and Dartmouth is another one. It's like those things. I'm like, all right, I'm in the right place, the right time.
I love
and
that you said that.
I
feel through the world the same way. It's like when you hear a thing a couple times, it's like, oh wait, I'm in the right place, or like I think I need to listen a little bit more, or just kind of wait for the third sign, if you will, or something like that.
And then you gotta like, so yes, like listen, realize, but then execute. It's like, okay, well, wait a minute, maybe there is something going on in Colorado Springs. Maybe I need to look there. Maybe I need to re-engage with two individuals that I spoke to earlier this week to see like what the hell's going on, so, and then what you were talking about like, the deep belly breaths is like, that's another tool to use to become the observer, to like gain that little time between thought reacting, or between, okay, here comes my wife, I can tell she's pissed, she's gonna say something that's likely gonna, and then I have a decision to like engage or try to disengage, so you just get a little bit more time. So yeah, all of these tools are great. And what's cool about it is everything that you just described, this like intuition, and then all of these things for me keep going back to the belly, right? Which is like also, what I plan on trying to do is finish this book in Poland, but like trying to, logically put onto paper what we spoke about before, which is like helping people trying to get out of their own head and more into that openness, whether it's their heart or their belly, to let go a little bit, to slow things down, and observe a little bit more, I think is really important.
You mentioned the center a couple times, and this will be tied back to the medicine. What is the center? You mentioned even potentially looking in Colorado for another branch of it or something. tell us more about the center, and then you mentioned a book. So what is that?
Yeah. So the center is it's called Experience Onward. Obviously what we offer there are these legal guided mushroom experiences, and in 2022, Oregon voters voted in a program called Measure 109. So it's the first legal regulated mushroom program in the country that opened up. We have a service center, so there's 4 licenses, facilitator licenses. Those are like sitters or therapists that know how to hold space for these individuals, and they also prepare them and then integrate these lessons learned. And then there's a manufacturing license, a testing license, and then our service center license that we have. So we're able to legally purchase and administer these mushrooms and then create the proper environment for somebody to have this positive experience. So we're one of 9 facilities. We're the largest in the United States.
Wow.
It's 4,600 square feet. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, it's 10 private breakout rooms. So we like to do groups, and then if people need to, find their own space. And what's cool about this life is, you kind of go through the arcs and the ups and the downs, and this is something that is like, I know for sure is why I'm here, using natural mushrooms, no synthetics, and then also like collecting data to prove that this isn't placebo for a couple different purposes, to get more concussion survivors and people that are suffering, that are blocked by the stigma, to realize that this is really good for the brain, the body, the spirit, and then to open up more of these states, so people have, more access. So the first one's in Oregon. We're going to expand to Colorado, and we're looking at 3 properties. So as soon as I get back from Poland, I'm gonna head up there, and that's been exciting. We just finalized kind of that deal, and what you have are 2 different things. So Oregon's an urban center, so there's different rules in each state. So Oregon doesn't allow for overnight stays or for an actual full retreat, right? So it's a little bit disjointed, and Colorado does. Take it a step further. Colorado, I can have float tanks. I can have a high heat sauna. I can have cold exposure. I can have all of these other wellness tools. Whereas Oregon, you can only offer mushroom services in the facility. You can't have any other tools. And then in Colorado, I could have diagnostics. So it's there's a commercial kitchen, nature excursions on the property. It's like a true retreat space. So Oregon urban, Colorado long stay, on the property retreat space. So yeah, we're really, really excited about, and then you have, increasing accessibility is really important. So you have lower price points for the urban. And then we also partnered with Enthea, which is a specialty network that actually partners with employers and offers insurance reimbursement for this treatment, which is big. And then we work with No Fallen Heroes, Matthew Wiz Buckley, and a couple different veteran organizations. We've done a few athlete veteran retreats. We just recently did a 8-person cohort, UFC fighters, some boxers. We took QEEG, blood work, genetic testing, gut microbiome, and all of that. All of that data is being mined right now, so we'll be able to talk about it a little bit more towards the end of this month. So veterans are a big focus, executives, curious beginners, and just trying to get people access to this as much as possible.
Right on, man. Where are you looking in Colorado?
So I want to stay around Denver Metro.
Yeah.
For sure. Right.
Whole airport.
Yeah. Well, it's very nuanced too. Like Chase, Bank of America, if they know you're working with a Schedule 1, they're not going to give you any lending, right? So you have to be a little bit strategic in the sense of I know that there's going to be a lot of urban spaces opening because they're smaller and, people aren't necessarily raising capital, and definitely haven't been operating in Oregon. But, I think that our retreat space can obviously be a wellness place, a hub. And then it can also be, which is something that Oregon's missing, is this place to go to after a medicine experience. Say you go to an urban center and then you want to just integrate. The people can come to our center, eat really good food, do the gym. Like, again, it all goes back to what I truly believe is like, but yes, give somebody an experience, but show them how to live for a couple days, right? Give them a program to leave with. And so yeah, that's Experience Onward. We'll God willing, we'll be the first multi-state operator here in the next 3 or 4 months.
Man, congrats! I'll definitely be visiting that wherever it ends up in or around
John
the Denver
and I'll
area.
Come do another ceremony together.
Oh yeah,
awesome.
You know what I would love to do? What I'd love to do is get your community there, and maybe we put on like a 3 to 5 day workshop. And yes, there can be medicine, high, low doses. Like, the cool thing about Colorado is like it doesn't have to be these like just these blasted therapeutic doses. You know what I'm saying? So we can got a bunch of Navy SEALs. They're going to put on a couple corporate retreats and
do it, John.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my community right there. The SEAL community.
Yeah, exactly. We can really pull a lot of people into that. I mean,
cool.
Especially, we'll talk offline. Well, I mean, speaking of that and bringing people into these centers and stuff like that, I'm sure there's a lot of resistance to doing this kind of medicine. Like, how do you address those concerns and the trepidation that people have, like, to taking psychedelics? You know what I mean? It's like,
I have to laugh, and I got to inject here before Dan answers, because I retired out of the SEAL teams in 2020, and I moved to Colorado. And I remember sitting down for coffee, like within the first week of being here. And this guy who had retired a few months before me was like, "Oh man, I just got back from doing this ayahuasca retreat in Costa Rica." And I was like, what? I had no idea. And he told me, he's like, "Yeah, it's a psychedelic." I was like, "Whoa, man, you're doing drugs?"
Yeah, exactly.
And then within like the next year, I was taking it myself.
Right.
So there's a lot of people who have this perception. I just got to add to your question, Will, hey, we're just going out there to do drugs and have a good time, but it's not that. So sorry, I just wanted to lay a little bit more context before you answer, Dan.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the stigma, right? That's associated with some of these medicines. And typically, so when people reach out, they're already hurting, right? This isn't a first line of defense. This is a last line of defense for people, right? It's like, I've tried everything else. I've seen this either from, a podcast or Huberman or Rogan or whoever they've listened to, or a friend of mine went and he's really doing a lot better. So I'm curious. So typically what I'll do is I'll read the individual, and if they need a little bit more convincing, then I'll pull up a deck that basically has all of the research encompassed in it, especially for how good it is for the brain. So I'll pull up the fMRI of, placebo brain on psilocybin. They'll see all the brain connections on the right-hand side, and they'll correlate that with hopefully, my story or other stories of how this gets concussion survivors' brain back online, I'll show them the 130 plus FDA approved clinical trials for over 50 indications. Indications means anxiety, depression, PTSD. I'll point them towards the 150 peer reviewed studies done by Johns Hopkins since 2006, and, talk to them about the FDA breakthrough therapy designation. So the clinical trials works hand in hand with how we've been able to open these states up and convince voters as well as lawmakers that this could be safe and efficacious for a lot of people. So I think it just really depends. You kind of meet people where they are. I get on these kind of free discovery calls with them, and I listen to how they came to me, what they've been dealing with, if they have any questions about the process or how things work, if they have any questions about like what actually happens in the medicine journey. I gauge Will, if it needs to be a little bit more spiritual, or if I'm going to scare somebody off with that type of talk, maybe it just needs to stay a little bit more, in line with how beneficial it could be for depression or whatever they're coming with. So, it's a wide variety of people that are kind of searching for this, and stigma sometimes gets in the way, but, man, we did a little bit of market research. There's over 108 million Americans that have admitted to doing some type of psychedelic, in the last like 2 years. So that means that people are freely saying that they're breaking the law. So, maybe double that number, and maybe 50% of Americans have actually done, a mind altering substance. So, there's a lot of interest for sure.
Yeah, the conversation has changed dramatically. I think
Yeah.
since COVID, like people sat home and been like, "What the fuck am I doing with my life?" And it's just like, how am I going to get out of this thing? And then and you're hearing so much more and more about these plant medicines, just like, oh, maybe I'll try it, because it's not such a stigmatism anymore. It's not like I'm taking drugs. It's like, no, I'm actually trying to, access and advance more of my consciousness and live a happier and healthier life.
That too. And then people are like, and people are like, okay, we've done 10,000 treatments. There's 10,000 people plus that have gone through Oregon. And like, it's incredible. One of the things that Robin Card Harris and I were like advocating when we offered our stories, we're like, we need to collect data, like just do something. And they didn't, so imagine if there was like just a couple questions about, how this has improved your life, or the mystical experience scale, or maybe some pre and post blood work. So I think that's another thing that's exciting about Colorado, is like our ability on site to run people through a very quick 6-minute QEEG, take a swab, do some blood work before you come, order that with Quest Diagnostics. And then, the narrative is like, not only for yourself, right? Don't let the stigma get in the way of like, well, I don't think it worked. Well, let's take some diagnostics to show you that it did, and then to show other people, in an effort, Jon, to have more SEALs, get past that stigma. It could save lives, so I think that's
I know it has.
Yeah. So that's a big thing that we're doing, I think, is a little bit different than other centers, which is collecting that data. I think it's really important.
We have a very
for sure.
data-driven society too, and it actually puts people's mind at ease when they say like, "Oh, you have the science there. It's not just some sort of wild, hippie thing."
Dude,
and it really speaks to them.
It's crazy that we don't listen to people. It's wild that I have to like do it this way. Trust me, like I would rather like people sit there and like look at my before and afters, or Jon, you tell your story and like and have them listen. It's like we just can't. I don't know. It's a weird thing. We can't. It's very ingrained.
I think
I agree.
I think in today's society, we're always looking at facts and figures, and we're reading so much that the right side of our brain becomes more developed than the left side, and the left side is where that heart and that creativity, that compassion lies. But then when you tap into these medicines and you tap into these practices, then you start developing both sides of the brain, and then you do start to be able to listen. But for right now, I mean, I was that way when I had a counselor recommend mindfulness and meditation. I laughed in his face until he was able to show me the data behind it. I'm like, no, man, I need to see why it works.
Show me,
explain me the data, show me the data, show me the physiological science. And then I was like, okay, I'll try it. So I get it. But now since then, I've been, practicing for 8 years or so. I definitely have gotten into the other side. I've gotten not only into the other side of my brain, but I've gotten more into my heart. So now I can listen more, right? But, we've also kind of switching subjects here, or staying along the same subjects as the medicine, but just kind of switching aspects of it. You mentioned jumping right in and going 5.6, right? Hero's dose right off the bat. For our listeners, I think I did 4.
We did 3.5 in Beckley. I think it was like
3.5, and then you went up to
like 3.5.
Oh, whatever it was.
Did they test? Yeah. Did they ever test? Like, did they know how much psilocybin content was in it for you guys?
I don't know if they tested it, but they said how many, but I don't know if they tested
like just in grams.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just in grams,
yeah. So, for those not familiar with this, like what is the hero's dose? What are you doing when you say micro dose? Like we all three know what that is,
right,
but
dose, whatever.
Yeah. So let's break it down. Let's start with I never put anything in my body that I don't know has not been tested. So for a number of different reasons, not necessarily additives, but that's important to look at. But mainly, like I want to know how much psilocybin, psilocin, norbeo, or baeocystin, those 4 major kind of alkaloids, tryptamines, let's just use psilocybin. So that's the most active part of the mushroom. That's what's been proven synthetically in all these trials. So they just strip the most psychoactive part of the mushroom out synthetically, and that's what's been given in Johns Hopkins trials, etc. Now, they use milligram amounts, so they don't use grams. When we talk about going to these retreats, we're using grams, okay? So 25 milligrams in these clinical trials of synthetic psilocybin is the equivalent of 2.5 grams of mushrooms, assuming, here's the important part, assuming that that mushroom is 10% psilocybin content. Okay, so that's why you have to test it. A lot of the retreats will use strains like, these are weird names, but penis envy.
One of my favorites. Seriously though.
Yep.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's really
It's
good.
very visual. It's very
Really?
visual. Yeah. But typically that's 4% content. Okay. So the reason I'm breaking this down is like, you can now start to see, now I'm sure it worked, right? But like in our program, and then when I take my microdoses, I test the mushroom to make sure that I know how much psilocybin content is in there. So then I know how much to like measure out. And then I also know how much we're giving our clients, right? So I will typically suggest to the growers my own line of strains. So there's penis envy, there's albino, there's like golden teacher, there's like all these very common mushrooms. And then there's ones that a lot of people haven't heard about, like blue magnolia, purple mystics. These are much higher. These are the 10% kind of content. The reason I like those is mushrooms are heavy. They have this kind of chitin, this wall that needs to be broken down by our belly. And this might be too much information, but
no, man, I'm fascinated. I didn't know all this.
Yeah. So, taking less of a gram amount with a higher psilocybin content will help people the next day not be as foggy, right? So like, and then different strains do different things. Like you take purple mystics, you go outside at night. It's almost like ayahuasca, where they take it to go hunt. You can like kind of see at night. It's really, so it works on, if people are coming with a brain injury, it's really good because that eye brain axis is typically off, if you see that. So you can start, what I'm getting to here is like having your own mushroom strain, because we're using full spectrum mushrooms. You can start pairing that with individuals that are presenting themselves a certain way. Penis envy is very visual, so it's also great for concussion survivors, because most of the damage that has been done with NFL, NHL guys is frontal lobe. So, and because we know it's visual, it's working on that frontal lobe. And then we use a strain in the center that's high in norbeo and baeocystin because it's an anxiolytic. So, you want to give that to somebody that is maybe a sexual abuse survivor, somebody with like some heavy complex PTSD. You don't just want to blast them with just psilocybin. You want to look for a strain that has this kind of anxiolytic property, so it's a little bit of an easier ramp up. So that's dosage. So typically we'll just assume that if you see in these studies that they were given 10 milligrams of synthetic psilocybin, then assume that that's 1 gram of a mushroom, a dried mushroom, with 10% content. So 10 milligrams would be in that mushroom. And then, when we talk about like a microdose will be, so if you're in that 1 gram level, you could probably still go to a concert and have a good time,
Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah.
I've done that.
Yeah.
It's a good fucking time. There's some of the music I've never heard before. I'm like,
no doubt, dude.
It's good. Anyway,
there's levels. There's levels to it. It's not necessary. And you go by the beach. Like, I wouldn't consider a gram like a drop-in therapeutic dose. Now you start getting above a gram, depending on the mushroom and depending on how skilled you are at controlling your own mind and breath and all these factor in. You're starting to teeter around that level of like, don't leave the house. Okay. Like, cause then you don't want to put yourself in these overstimulating situations on too many mushrooms. That's the bad trip. There's really no such thing as the bad trip. It's just, you didn't manage the dosage and the setting. the environment that you did it in. And then, but you start getting up 10% content, gram and a half, sit your ass down on the couch, and then put some music on and enjoy, just be curious and just lay back. Now, typically all of the clinical trials that have been done, and if you have 10%, like 2.5 grams, again, weight has to be factored in. Your metabolic state, your metabolism needs to be factored in. But typically we always start at 2.5 grams of 10% content, or 25 milligrams for a therapeutic dose. You're getting in there right away, but other things matter, right? So now it's coming like full circle back to why I think these medicines are, connected to this silent observer or source or God. We always get people to fast. So anytime you're taking mushrooms, if you are in a fasted state, you are going to feel it more. So if you just ate, then the food is competing with the mushroom, because the mushroom is attaching to your 5-HT2A receptor. That's serotonin. 10% are in our brain, 90% are in our gut. So if you're fasted, you're going to feel a smaller amount more. All right. Now there's ways to, so I think that lays the groundwork, hopefully, of like dosage and strains and stuff. When people come into our facility, we make sure they're fasted for more than 12 hours. The ground rule for fasting is 4. Like if you're going to take a large dose, some people have thrown up. That's not typical, but you don't want to have anything in your stomach because you could get nauseous. The nausea comes from when there's food and it's competing. The way to get past the nausea is to convert the medicine into psilocin. So psilocybin is a prodrug to psilocin. You guys have probably heard of lemon teching. So people squirt lemon or orange juice,
or
pour
ginger
orange
or
juice,
something like that.
yeah, or ginger, anything acidic. We'll start converting the actual mushroom, ground them up, put the acid on there, wait 5 to 10 minutes, and then drink it. So what you have is it's already converted, so you're not relying on your gut, especially if we're doing a group. We will do this in order to make sure that everybody's dropping in at the same time, because in a fasted state with lemon tech, we know your belly's clean, and as long as you didn't lie, everyone's going to be in at the same time, right? They're not going to get nauseous, and then you just really need to be prepared, right? Eye shades are important if you want to go internally. Having like maybe some nature loops, 432 hertz music on YouTube is a great way to do it. Eyes open, that's okay too. Over the ear headphones is great. Speaker in the middle of the room is great too, because you can hear all the different levels. But typically, 25, 2.5 grams therapeutic, 1 gram having fun, and then 1/10 of a gram is a microdose. So that can typically be taken Monday to Friday. And there's different ways to do it. Nobody actually knows. So like, John, if you want to try 2 days on, 1 day off,
I've done the 500, or sorry, I've done the 5 days on, 2 days off, with 100 milligrams, but that was not synthetic. That was somebody who had dried the mushrooms.
Full spectrum. Yeah. The only time you're getting synthetic is if you're in an actual clinical trial. But the reason I think it's important, everybody is seeing the results from these clinical trials. And then if it's 25 milligrams and they correlate that to 2.5 grams, but they're eating 5% content, you'd have to eat 5 grams to get to the 2.5 milligrams, right? So like, I think it's important to just know how potent your medicine is, so yeah. And then if you're doing a therapeutic dose, you got to make sure that you have a guide. Because if you take too much and you're too scared and not used to letting go fully, you can get into this situation that can get very uncomfortable.
Anxiety, man,
for a very long time. Yeah. And then if, and all this isn't medical advice, but if you do need to shut it off, there are some medicines, prescription medicines that you could take to shut something off.
Yeah, I'm glad you
Um,
said that real quick, Dan. So all three of us, none of us are medical practitioners. I want to
Yeah.
put that disclaimer out for our listeners and our
Sure.
watchers.
Good
yeah,
point.
none of this
Hey,
is medical
do your
advice.
own homework. This is just our sharing our experiences, and Dan's
Yeah.
clearly very smart on this stuff. But as far as I know,
Yeah.
Dan, you're not a doctor, right?
No.
All right.
I'm just sharing the little bit of knowledge that I use for how I guide myself. A lot of my
And your
stuff
Sounds like you
was
got a
experience.
lot of
Yeah.
knowledge, a
yeah.
lot of
And your
knowledge.
experience
Um,
too. I mean, yeah.
mhm.
Wow.
So
Um,
yeah, but I think and then I do want to touch on this because I think it's really important. Do not get caught up in these narratives in this industry of feeling guilty for taking a microdose. Don't get caught up in feeling guilty or shameful for taking a gram and going to a concert. Yes, like the number one thing is you have to respect this medicine for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Anytime I
saying
say
that.
it, I say a prayer.
Mhm.
But also I also think it's okay to take the medicine and not take it in just a therapeutic setting and just have a good time. Some people take mushrooms to drink less. Some people take them instead of drinking. Some people take them because they want to be more focused and sharper at work and they want to work better. Some people take them just simply as a supplement because they want to flush neuroinflammation. I really do think the most important part is respecting it and then creating your own relationship with the medicine is really important. And if you do those things, I don't think you should feel guilty about taking it. I think we should all have access to it.
Agreed. And I've been there. I've been there where I did microdose for a while. I'm like, I'm not telling anybody that I'm doing this. I'm no way. Cause there is that, again, that stigma, and some misconceptions about it, but I've gotten better. I've definitely gotten
Yeah, I
better.
mean, there's
Yeah,
no
man.
fucking guilt in taking Adderall or something, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No guilt in that.
Yeah.
Talk to
Yeah.
a doctor. Actually, that thing I did today, or just a couple hours earlier, I just wanted to get out of my own way, and I took like 200 milligrams of psilocybin, full spectrum. Didn't feel the effects, but I know I just wanted to be more alive, be more active, and really bring people into this conversation. And it was like, the nerves were there for the first 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden, I think I became more alive, and I was able to kind of wake up more of the room because of the energy that I was kind of bringing forth, and not necessarily because of the microdose, but I just know it just keeps me out of all that, the negative thought loop sometimes that I can just really bash myself with, and it just turned out to be a really great experience for people. And I don't know how much of that has to do with the microdose itself, but I know it definitely is. I don't know. Again, I don't necessarily feel in an altered state at all. I just feel more clear. I'm able to be more grounded. I'm able to kind of listen and then access and speak from that internal tuition as well. And that's like when you're really living from, and I think it also helps me to get deeper into just being an authentic individual and just not giving a fuck about what it looks like, only living in service to the moment, and to the people that I'm serving. And it just turned out to be, I feel like I could say it, like I really hit a home run with this little
Yeah.
2 hour nugget that I had.
Nice,
And
dude.
how much of the, thank you, how much of the dose helped, I don't know, but you know what? It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
And here I am saying it to everybody out there. It's like, yeah, I microdose when I get talks, It's like,
Oh,
not all the
dude.
time.
Yeah, I think I mean I'm gonna take one on the flight tomorrow before the flight, for sure. And it'll probably be a bigger one. Because I mean, number one, I'm gonna work. And when I do take it, I have more access to I'm more creative. I have better access to language. I can problem solve better. And then I'll just be more patient around my kids. And again, I don't think using mushrooms that grow freely everywhere here in Florida, that I should ever feel guilty about it just because, I understand I'm not Native American and I'm not, a certain nationality, but I still think, I come at it from, if the earth is providing this, then why shouldn't we all have access to it? And who are we to say that it should just be a therapeutic setting? I really don't agree with those types of narratives. Yeah, if it makes you better, do it. I also know what makes me better, man. It's like I exercise. It's not just one thing.
Great.
That's right.
It's a huge part of my life for sure. And then I wrote something where I say, like, the title of it was like, I use mushrooms and mushrooms use me. So like, are mushrooms alive if we don't eat them? And like, if they make me a better person, don't they want to be eaten? Like, and don't they want to like feel alive? And don't they want to like
appreciated?
Help? Yeah,
right.
Like, if like this conversation, because I microdosed today and you did too, and someone's gonna hear the message and give them confidence to improve their life, fuck yeah. Like,
thank you for saying that.
Fucking awesome, man. So again, unapologetically, just like, I think just be yourself. They do make you so much more confident to tell the truth, and if that's the case, man, I think everyone should try it,
I agree.
Yeah,
so,
I think
for
it
most
would be a better
people,
place.
maybe not everyone, but
yeah. Well, with that, what do you hope to see in the future regarding psilocybin treatment?
Yeah, I think, I just keep my head down. I don't go to conferences anymore. I try to get this message outside of this community that already, knows about how special this is. And I'd love to see more. I'd love to just continue to, I just need to be healthy enough and in the right frame of mind to be able to do a couple different things, problem solve on how to get around actually talking about this without getting shadow banned by Meta and all the Googles. And so that's like one problem solving. And then, collecting data, I think, is important to then be presented at. And when I say I don't go to conferences, I don't go to psychedelic conferences anymore. I go to like concussion conferences. I go to like all these other places where people aren't necessarily talking about it. And presenting that data there, I think, is really important, right? So you give people hope. But in a nutshell, man, just like trying to, operate, do good, have fun, be profitable at these centers, I think, is something that's really important. 34 of them have opened in Oregon. There's only 9 left, so like making very smart. And yeah, just, as Wayne Dyer says, dance the dance, sing the song, whoever sees it, whoever hears it is great. I'm not putting any timelines on anything. I don't have any expectations. I set some goals for myself. And if I do all these things correctly, I know that, if I become, Wayne says, and I really do believe this, you don't get what you deserve in this life, you get who you are. And so if I'm good here and here, then I think everything else will take care of itself. I really do. And when people need to hear it, they'll hear the song, and when they need to see it, then they'll see the dance. And I'm not that good of a dancer, but
nor me,
you
man,
put
nor
some
me.
skates on, Dan. Yeah. You're a good dancer on skates. I'm just kidding.
There's a little pond at this place that we're looking at, so maybe we'll do.
There you go, man.
A little pond hockey.
Yeah,
that'll be great.
Oh man, random funny story that has absolutely nothing to do with the entire theme except the skating piece. One of my good friends is an F-18 pilot.
Okay.
So a jet fighter pilot, right?
Yeah.
Badass, like freaking.
That'd be incredible.
Like F-18 is just a beautiful jet, and his call sign is ice dancer. And normally in the Navy, the call sign, yeah, right. Normally in the Navy, the call sign is something derogatory or it has to do with a terrible story. He was an ice dancer, literally growing up. That's what he did. He was an ice dancer, and that was his call sign.
We gotta set him up with. I work with No Fallen Heroes, Matthew Wisbuckley. He's a Top Gun, graduate.
Oh yeah,
F-18. Yeah, man, we got to set these two guys up. So he and I
making
work
notes
closely
off to the
together
side.
about you know
Yeah.
grants and grant recipients, and he created a foundation. So yeah,
Right on,
we'll
man.
link them up.
Or
Ice
Yeah.
Dancer and Wiz will get him on some skates or something.
it's funny, we have you know,
There
this
we
little
go.
the God winking you're talking about, Daniel. You mentioned Wayne Dyer, and our guest that's out this week, Tim Ryan, who ran for president in 2020, he talked about Wayne Dyer. So there's all sorts of
dude.
winks going on. Colorado
Yeah, man.
Springs, ice dancing, Wayne Dyer. We are definitely in the right conversation today.
No doubt, dude.
I wish we could probably talk another hour on this, but we got to close it down, unfortunately. But
all good.
this has been such a great conversation, Dan. Like, I mean, I really get to, I'm hearing from your soul is what I keep, you know what I mean? You're just speaking from such a deep place that I believe, or I'd imagine that the medicine has brought to you this wonderful clarity. You're on an incredible mission. And thank you for bringing more of this work and more of this medicine to the world. And we'll definitely take you up on, you know, getting our community together and running a retreat.
kidding me?
Fuck yeah.
Definitely.
Fuck yeah, dude.
You
Let's
know,
do it.
we're going to definitely
Let's
do
do
it.
it.
And Jon, anything to close?
No, man. I've loved this conversation. I thought I knew a good bit about psilocybin coming in, but I've learned so much more. So very, very interested in talking more down the road, whether it's on the show or just in person when you come to Colorado, man. Maybe I'll drive up to Denver and visit. But yeah, I have nothing to add, brothers.
Let's do it.
Will.
I'll be there the 23rd, 24th. We'll exchange some cell numbers. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Will already got yours.
we can hook it up offline. You know, we'll just do one breath to close. Is that cool? We talked about the breath today. Let's just find the breath really quick. You know, and look at, here we go. I'll exhale out really easy. Really exhale. Try to hit bottom and feel emptiness just for a moment. Stay empty. Fill with life, fill with breath. A little more. Let's hold that life in our body for 3, 2, 1, and let it go. Dan Carcillo, everybody. Daniel,
right.
Thank you for being the man you are. Thank you for
wonderful
joining us
having you.
today.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thanks, brothers.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.